Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. Welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review we are catching up with the 13th Doctor and Yaz in the second episode of the first series of the 13th Doctor Adventures, In the Return of the Doctor, as written by Rory Thomas Howes. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website on both physical CD and digital download, and it is a limited edition to 1,500 units, so once it's sold out, it will be sold out for good. Previously, of course, I took a look at Vampire Weekend as written by Tim Foley, the opening episode of the series. It was very fun, a great introductory story. To be honest, I imagine if you're a fan of the 13th Doctor, you've probably listened to that episode already. This episode is technically standalone, but there is apparently a plot arc that will continue throughout the rest of this series, although this episode does also seem somewhat standalone. So let's get into the second story, shall we? The second episode of the 13th Doctor and Yaz Adventures takes us into space, an alien society of Zarians. It's mid-adventure, the Doctor and Yaz, with the help of civilian Talpa, stop yet another foe, the Tablonians, from basically invading their homeworld. But the Doctor is quick to leave, despite their friend Talpa getting caught in the crossfire. He's in hospital, he'll pull round, but the Doctor isn't a fan of waiting around. The Return of the Doctor is an effective character piece tapping into something the Doctor Who has done a number of times already, action and consequences. The Doctor returning to the scene of an adventure to find out that things have gone a little bit wrong after their previous visit 10 years ago. Their presence has had not necessarily a positive effect on this society, and this challenges the relationship between herself and Yaz. So instantly, there is lots of green flags of this story as we're getting more character development and we really got to see on screen. At the time of release, this is Rory Thomas Howes' first story in the audio drama world of Doctor Who at Big Finish. Whether he has more in the can already that are yet unannounced is always a possibility, but I think he captures the essence of these central characters well, and hopefully we do hear more from him in the future. The 13th Doctor has lots of great one-liners and remarks. She's very fun, a little bit scatterbrained. She's quite doubtful and persistently quite flustered, I'd say, and I do think that this makes her incarnation quite interesting, more relatable, but she does also have those sudden sparks of composure as well, which can make 13 seem quite abrupt and socially awkward. She's a very chaotic Doctor, and admittedly, this will not be for everyone. Each incarnation of the Doctor is so varied and different. That is what makes Doctor Who great, and especially within the audio medium, you are relying on that particular incarnation of the Doctor and their personality to hook you in, to tell that story. And it's not really like TV where you can watch an episode sort of with half your brain on because you've got the visual stimulus. With audio, it requires a lot more focus, and if your 13th Doctor isn't for you, it's completely fine. You will probably struggle with this story, but this range is dedicated to those who like the 13th Doctor or want to give her another go. And that's completely okay. Not everyone is gonna like every Doctor. Now for me, Mandip Gill as Yaz really shines in this one. In fact, she's been brilliant within both of the stories so far, and I appreciate how this episode sets up troubles and explores the issues between Yaz and the Doctor's relationship. The threat of the story feels very personal, psychologically playing on the cast's mind, increasing anger and agitation. What's the source of the frustration and societal unrest is a little bit uncertain. The Doctor is trying to make the best of a bad situation in this society where she basically isn't liked, especially by Talpa. That relationship is strained because her and Yaz just left without saying goodbye all those years ago, and that's affected him as a person. The build-up of the Resistance I did rather enjoy, the dynamic between Talpa, Vashia and Azan. The script does a good job of using their burrowing qualities as these alien-like armadillo characters. I really like that. Now I would have liked to have more visual description of the world that they are inhabiting, as I don't really think my imagination had much to work with, especially from the script side of things, to imagine this world and their surroundings, to visualise this city. But the relationship between Vashia, Azan and Talpa is definitely at the forefront. As I say, this is a very character-driven story, but the good characters. I think when it comes to the actual location and the foe of the story, they are very much absent, but I like the fact the foe is absent. It's pulling the strings in the background, and that is making the people that we know, like Yaz, approach things a little bit differently. We don't get the Yaz that we are used to in this episode, so that instantly makes it quite interesting. There are quite a lot of action sequences as well, which is nice to imagine, and amongst these scenes there is also those touching character moments as well. Vashia's personality is shaped by plants, meanwhile Azan has troubles in his past which have affected him in the present. All these small details I did really appreciate, especially whilst all of this is running alongside Yaz, who is struggling to question who the Doctor is and her actions. Psychologically, I like how the Doctor's actions is sort of used to manipulate Yaz. But as with many New Who stories, there is also an important message, I feel, behind this episode of hope and talking to people and transparency and getting two sides of the story. I think this also helps give the episode a sense of progression from beginning to end. It goes on a journey, building up the characters along the way, and I understand them as people as a result. But at the same time, I can also appreciate that this episode will not be for everyone. I feel like it is quite a unique story, and if you're not on board with the characters, then you might find this one a little bit of a slog. But if you are enjoying 13 and Yaz, then I imagine you'll probably quite like this story. Now, this is a very niche critique. One thing that I did find a smidge distracting in this story is the music score. Not because it's not very good, it is really good. It was very energetic, it complements 13's fast pace, but it was overwhelmingly familiar to the Doctor Who Livchenko spin-off, The Robots. Now, not by coincidence at all, Joe Kramer's work is woven throughout all 6 volumes of that series, and it absolutely shapes its personality and design overall. And not by coincidence, he is also responsible for the music within the 13th Doctor adventures, so I do definitely think there is a little bit of cross-usage here. So there is a lot of similarity to what is presented within The Return of the Doctor, but I fully appreciate if you're going to use the same composer, that is completely fine. There will be some similarities in there. It's more of a novelty, if anything, but it was a little bit distracting at points. But again, that's something that only a very small subsection of the audience will actually spot, as these are two pretty much polar opposites within the Big Finish catalogue. Although, I do find it interesting that for 2 New Who reviews in a row now with Big Finish, when I was exploring Snare, the first adventure of the 9th Doctor, and Rose series, I did comment on Murray Gold's score, but in particular the absence of it, because I do feel quite close to that era of the show. It's the one that I grew up with. Having the absence of Murray Gold and music is quite notable. There's always going to be something missing because of that. And maybe if I felt more closely connected to 13 and Yaz's era, I would also be saying the same about Segan Akinola's music too. Its absence within this series naturally makes the whole setup of the adventure feel different to what's seen on screen. So The Return of the Doctor absolutely has good intentions as an audio drama overall. Much like Vampire Weekend, I think 13 and Yaz are given particular priority focus, more so than other Doctor companion relationships, but also more so than the locations and supporting characters of the story. And I imagine this is absolutely an intentional decision in response to the comments often made about this era. People want to explore 13 and Yaz in more depth, get to know them as people, and the first 2 stories have certainly tried to do that. I think 13 certainly has more to do in this story, acknowledging her vulnerabilities head-on and her awkwardness of people, and this is mainly brought on because of the way Yaz is in this story too. I think Mandip also really shined. She shined within both episodes so far. I really hope that this series does eventually give us a completely Yaz-focused Earth-based story, essentially covering her struggles from earlier within life that was crowbarred into, I believe, Can You Hear Me? I know that scene happened somewhere, but I needed to Google what episode it was in. I think the story balances the action, being fast-paced, and character work, the slower pace, really well, leading to a well-formed story for fans of this most recent era of New Who. And that's the thing, I think that fans of this particular era will probably get more out of this story than I will, as someone who's not particularly the target audience for this certain style of audio drama. But what I do really appreciate is the more heated, emotional discussions of this episode, and characters like Talpa that feel very real, and his sort of adoptive family in this story, which show promise and potential for this series moving forward. Again, this is also an audio drama that I imagine is really accessible for those less familiar with the format. It's a rather easy story to get along with. I did listen to it twice to appreciate all of the different elements. It's very similar to other New Who stories. There isn't too much going on, it's not overcomplicated, but being someone who is quite familiar with formatting at Big Finish across multiple ranges, naturally as someone who is a more experienced listener, I am also hoping that this range pushes a bit further in the future, pushes those boundaries, does a few experimental stories, heck, even has a few returning monsters and villains in there as well, and seeing 13 going up against those, because I do want the best for the 13th Doctor and Yaz. I want to like these characters more, and this is the perfect medium to explore these characters within, and I do have faith that Big Finish can do that. So thank you for watching this review, I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for reviews and reaction to the latest audio drama releases. Have a nice day, I shall see you all next time.